Okay, let's see if we can tie it all together and make the final move of actually displaying the posts that we've taken. And that will have a very simple, but actually technically fully functional Instagram app. And so the thing that I want to do here is I want to do the same thing that I did for the Movies app and for the Twitter app, which is I'm going to make a table view and I'm going to query the API to see if I can fetch the lists of posts. And so the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to add a table view into here. So you've seen multiple ways of doing this. You've seen using a table view controller and a table view. All that a table view controller does is it does for you these few steps, which are it will automatically create the table view and it will automatically set the data source and the delegate, and then it will declare that the class implements those protocols. So if it does it, why do I do this step manually? Well, it's because that the table view controller, the only downside to it is that it requires the root view be a table view. And so have you seen in Facebook where if you load Facebook or you load Twitter, it'll have this little view that floats up and it says, oh, view more stories or view new stories. Well, that little view would be a sibling of the table view and they would both be contained within a larger view. But if the table view is the root view, you can't do that. And so for that reason, I'd like to do it this way, which is, do those few steps manually. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is I'll also create that table view cell where I'll design our simple view. So I'll make this a little bit bigger, square, kind of square shape, maybe a little bit bigger than square for the caption. And then I'll throw my just kind of a large image view in there. And then I'll put the caption below too. So there'll be the image and then a label for, I'll do two labels, one label for my name and then one label for the comment. So it's good to always kind of use real data in here because it gives you a sense of design time, what it'll look like. So, wow, I love photos. Okay, and I'll actually configure the auto layout here too. So auto layout is something that we're gonna get used to over time. And so here, I'm gonna click on the image view. I like to move from the top to the bottom. Then here, I want it to have, I'm gonna uncheck constraint and margins, and then I will make this, I'll just do 8, 8, 8 all the way around. Okay, and that should fully describe my width, my height, and so on. So for my name here, I already have that top constraint, so I don't need another top one. And I just need the left side. I'll also make it 8 to make it flush. And then I'll add that. Now for this label, I'll do the same thing. And I'll add the constraint 8 here on the top. I'll do another 8 here on the left. And then 1 on the bottom here. So I want to make this 8 as well. Okay, so you notice it kind of grew a little bit. That's because it was flexing this in order to respect this thing here. So one thing with table views, which we haven't covered yet, but the bottom constraint should always be an inequality constraint. So this bottom one, I'm going to select this bottom thing here. And then I'm going to change this from equality to a greater than or equal to. And then, I also need a right constraint because I want this to go flush. So I'll go right here, 8. And then, wait, why did it go 8? 8, okay. And then I will make this have 0 lines so that it'll wrap. Okay, so there's still an error here and we can look at it, but it's probably related to this. I also need to set because right now the height, it's ambiguous what the height should be. So I could make it just a fixed height and width, but I want this to grow with the table view. So the width is fixed because the margins are 8. So what I want it to tell it to do is just maintain its current aspect ratio. So make the height equal to whatever the fixed width is. Okay. And then now everything is kind of blue. So at this point, I have the auto layout configured, and I would like to create all of my outlets and all of my custom cells. So I already have the feed view controller. So now I need to create that custom cell, which is my UI table view cell. And I'll call this a post cell. So this will give me my outlets and allow me to configure it. Okay, go back to the storyboard. So this is the same, I'm going fast here because this is the same recipe that we used. The auto layout may be a little bit different, but like this part of it is same as Flickster, same as Twitter. So hopefully you're accustomed to it now. So click on the cell. I have to type this in 2 places. One is here, post cell in the driver's license, and I also need to have it here. So it's always in 2 places. Then I need to click create outlets for my cell. So I'll do this thing here and then kind of click within your cell and switch it from, this is the bug. Okay, so right now it won't let me select automatic. So sometimes you have to restart Xcode to fix this problem. Let me see if I can just switch it back and forth. Okay, that worked. So let's see if I can, I'll go ahead and create, while I'm here, my outlet for the table view. Okay, so the table view goes to the feed view controller, and then I need to click on these internal items here, the image view, and then change this from the feed view controller to the post cell. So I'll create an element for this. I'll say this is the photo view. Don't call this the image view. It'll confuse it with the table view cell. So anything but image view here. So photo view. And then I'll call this the username label. And then the caption label. Okay, so I have the outlets to my cell created. I have the outlets to my table view created. So I'm almost done here. And let me see if I can just resolve this issue right here. So there's this internal error occurred, editing function may be limited. I'm just going to restart. I'm just going to reopen the app here. Okay, and then just to resolve this auto layout issue. Okay, so this issue, this is a little bit more complex. This is something called a weird word. It's the horizontal hugging priority. Without getting into it too much, it happens because labels have something called an intrinsic content size, and they want to be really snug. You see how these are snug right now? And I'm trying to get it to stretch out. So it doesn't know which label to stretch. It could stretch Tim to respect all of these margins that I've set, or it could stretch this one. It doesn't know which one to stretch. And so you have, whichever one you reduce, like if you reduce the horizontal hugging priority of the username, then that username label will get really long. But what I really wanted to do is I want this thing to stretch full width here. So I'm gonna accept this suggestion right here to reduce this priority from 251 to 250. Why is it 251? What are these weird numbers? The numbers themselves don't matter. It's just that this number, whatever it is, it could be like 76 and 75. This number just has to be less than this number. So I'm gonna accept that setting, and then you see this label stretch out full width. It's no longer gonna hug the content like it wants to. It'll respect the margins instead. Okay, so this is the the basic setup, and then now I can switch to code here. So if I go to my feed view controller. Okay, so again, this is the recipe from week 1 and on, and I'm just going to say UI table view delegate, UI table view data source, and then you come in here and you say table view dot delegate is equal to self, table view dot data source is equal to self. And then you just have to implement those two functions. So one is the number of rows. So number of sections, and here's the number of rows. I'll just put 0 for right now. And the second one is the cell for row. Okay, so these are the two required functions for the data source. And then finally, I have to attach it to data. So just like I did before, I'm going to create a posts, and it's going to be an array of PF object, and I'll instantiate it. So post is equal to array of PF object. So this will create it as an empty array. Let me import parse as well. So I've parse imported. I have an array called post, just like it did for an array of movies or an array of tweets. I have an array of posts now. View did load, and then so now I'm going to create a view did appear. Super.view did appear. And the reason that we're doing this is the same reason that we did it for Twitter, which is every time, like when that compose, after you finish composing one, you want that table view to refresh again here, so that I'll pull in that post that you just created. Okay, so here's where I have to make my query. So now this is parse. So if you switch over to your parse documentation, you can look at queries, how to construct these queries. And so it starts off by just creating the query. So let query is equal to this, and then this will be your class name, which for us is posts. Then you can put a bunch of options onto it, right? So they illustrate just one where they put a filter onto it. We don't want a filter. We do need what's called an include key. So we'll say dot include key. So you can do key or keys. For us, it's just going to be key. And then I'm going to put author. So what this does is, remember how in our dashboard for posts, we had a reference here? If you don't add the include key, it's just going to have the pointer without the actual object. We're saying, hey, go and fetch the actual object so it's there ready for me too. So you just have to do it for author. You don't need to do it for this file. And then so you do query, you do this thing, and then you can set up limits here. So we can say that, I want to get the last 20. And then once you've configured it, you can say, well, go do it. So find objects in background. And then here's an array of objects. So I'll call these my posts. And then my error. So if posts is not equal to nil, so if I was able to find some stuff here, then I'd like to say self.posts, which is this post up here, is equal to these posts. And then I want to say reload data. Right, so this was kind of like, remember, fetch the movies. Upon getting the movies back, put the movies into your array, and then tell the table view to reload itself, so it'll call these functions again. So it's always this pattern. Get the query, store your data, reload the table view. So here it's not 0, it's going to be posts.count. And then here, I need to say, let me grab my post. So you always use indexPath.row to grab the particular post. I see that it's a PF object, right? And now that I have the data, I'm going to grab the cell. So a lot of people usually put the cell first. So let cell is equal to table view dot DQ reusable cell identifier post cell. as post cell. Okay, so now it's that specific cell, and the reason I did that, of course, is because I want access to those outlets I created. So now I just need to configure those 3 outlets. So I'll say post.username, cell.username label dot text is equal to post. And now I just access this as a dictionary. So I can say post so let me actually unpack it a little bit. So I'll say user is equal to post author. That way I won't put too many things onto one line. So this user, I have to tell it, hey, this is a PF user. And so I can say user.username. Then I want to set that caption next. So I'll say cell.captionLabel.text is equal to post. And then just to remind myself, in post, I called it caption. So just like a dictionary here. And I think you have to tell it that it's a string. So let's see how far we got with there before we do the final move, which is to pull in the image as well. And just to remind us, the image, we just called it as the image column. So I'm going to log in here, and then, so I'm seeing something promising. I see my name, and I see a caption here, and I just don't see the photo, which is great. So now if I come back here, let me also go to the top now and import Alamo Fire image. And I need to just grab that image URL. So that thing is called, let's see here. So I said let image file is equal to post, and I called it an image, right? And I'm going to cast this as that PF file object that we stored earlier. And so that thing has a URL. So if I do image file.url, I can see it's a string question mark, so it's an optional string. And then I need to create the actual URL from that string using this constructor. Okay, and so now it's just like the images that we've worked with before. This thing is a URL, and I can use that extension from Alamo Fire, which is AF underscore set image with URL, and that will load it. So what I hope to see here is that image now. So this error is complaining because it's trying to load an insecure URL, and you can kind of see the URL here. And so what the problem is that iOS is just more strict about, it's trying to drive everyone towards HTTPS, and this by default is giving us HTTP. So for now, what we have to do is just configure the security settings to allow HTTP images. I'm going to click on info.plist. And then if you also go to this guide, this is a quick way to kind of copy and paste this in. So I'm going to copy this. And then in the info plist, I'm going to open as source code. And then in this dictionary, it doesn't really matter where, I'll just put it at the end. You just paste this in. And this says, hey, allow an HTTP image. And if you run this again, then hopefully with this permission, it will allow you to download that HTTP image. So I'll log in as Tim. And then that's it. That's our fully functioning Parstagram app, which you should really try if you can to extend, especially over the next week, and see if you can make it as close to the real Instagram app as possible. Have fun.